Hello and welcome. I'm Sean Dubé.
I'm Patrick Clement.
And this is Supporting Actors, a podcast about the art, business, and craft of acting from the perspective of two sometimes working actors.
And today we're talking about the different types of actors that are out there. A lot of people, I think, imagine being an actor and probably imagine being a movie star, mostly. And movie stars and actors, the Venn diagram overlaps, but not completely, I would say. So there's a difference, right? So we're going to talk about the different type of actors that we classify as movie stars, character actors, chameleons, oh my. And maybe we'll figure out by understanding these differences how that could apply to your career, our careers, and everyone's sanity.
Yeah, I think this is an interesting thing to talk about because movie stars get movies made, right? They convince financiers to say yes and depart from their hard-earned money, and they're giving people some kind of perception of a guaranteed return, right? And that's, I think, like if there's going to be a definition of a movie star, and we'll get into the acting component of it, but I think a part of it is like, do they put butts in seats? And a lot of different actors do that job in different ways, right? Not everybody is approaching it the same way, right? And you'll kind of see different brands or personas that lend themselves to certain stories that reduce the risk for financiers, right? And we've been at an interesting journey in Hollywood over the last decade in terms of going from movie stars to kind of no movie stars to now we're in a really weird spot where there's like, maybe it's the directors that are the stars. I don't know. Right. And I think that's, especially with the Odyssey that just came out, like that's the only name on that poster was a Christopher Nolan movie. So
yeah.
And
that movie's filled with stars.
Yes.
And names, very recognizable, familiar actors, maybe doing something different than they normally do. But, you know, you've got Bourne, and you've got Spider-Man, and you've got,
Devil Wears Prada, and
you've got some big marquee people being in a ensemble movie because it's Chris Nolan, and because I think the Oppenheimer Effect of like how, and that had a bunch of stars in it as well. But yeah, there's a familiarity. So like, box office draw, I think, in the last 10 years, movie stars have dwindled because a lot of them were conflated with IP,
right?
And, sequels. I mean, the number one movie box office wise is Toy Story 5 today, and globally. But, a lot of them are IP, and so they connected, but movies have gotten expensive. People want to spend money on something they know they're going to enjoy. And that's where movie stars made their bread and butter before, like being that brand, being that, like, this is a Denzel Washington movie. This is a Julia Roberts movie. I'm going to spend 2 hours with Tom Hanks, who I love. And that was, you're getting your $20 worth, right? But now you can stream movies come, like, do I want to spend $20 on the new Timothée Chalamet? I don't really know that guy. He said something shitty about opera. It's just like, like everyone's making these different choices with their wallet, and we can talk about kind of that. But why don't we talk about, I don't know.
Well, I think let's try to define a movie star, right? Beyond just like they get financing, because that's something that you don't necessarily see for the audience, right? Like obviously you're going to see that person in movies because they're getting someone to make that movie, and that is part of it. And like there is a very real component now where a star is necessary to get financing to make a film. But I think being famous by itself is not enough to make a movie star, right?
No.
We've seen attempts in the past where someone that was famous somewhere else tries to make a movie and it doesn't go well, and it's a different skill set, right? Just because someone is a great musician doesn't mean, or a great reality personality does not mean that they're going to have that same effect come across in a movie where they're playing a character, or even if they're playing themselves.
Yeah. I mean, I think to me, I think the movie star, it's that they have a relationship with like their persona or their charisma, their brand, for lack of a better word, has a relationship with a big audience. So it becomes like a known entity. So it is like the poster. You look at the poster and so like I'm thinking like Jack Black is one of the biggest movie stars for probably anyone under the age of 15 or something. Right.
Right.
And, I think he's been a very successful actor and a name for a long time and since my childhood. But like to be like, if you were to be like, Jack Black's the biggest movie star in the world, I'd be like, really? But he is huge on TikTok and he has these huge kids movies that make a ton of money. Like there's an audience that comes and shows up for him. Yeah. I don't know. So there's a level of like fame within that, or I think just a relationship with the audience where it's like, I want to see that. Like me and my buddies, we want to show up for Equalizer 4 for Denzel Washington. That's just like, I know what I'm getting. I want exactly that experience that I had a few years ago.
For sure. Yeah. And it almost doesn't matter what the story is that's being told, right? You're just like, no, I just want
if they're really good at doing it. Yeah.
Just want it to be cool. Yeah. Right.
Yeah. No one else does it. I
think it's worth saying that like a lot of times movie stars kind of align themselves closely with one form of an archetype, right? Mm-hmm. Where someone might be like the risk taker, like that's like Tom Cruise, right? Where it's just like, and that's just what he does.
Mr. Intensity.
Yeah, right. And every movie is just going to be intense risk taking, where someone like Tom Hanks is like an everyman, right? And it's like a different thing, but it's like it's a consistent quality to his work, even if he's playing different characters, right? Like that comes across. And I think that's true for a lot of these actors that are movie stars, is that they kind of have like, there's a consistency to their work, even if they're playing something different.
Yeah. And you see it too when they try to do something different, right? Yes. Like, what comes to mind, Vin Diesel did this movie, You're Guilty, I'm Guilty or something. It was like it's a really good movie. He's really good in it, but it was just a little art house film. And it harkens back to how he got discovered, which was making his own short film where he played multiple characters, but he does the Vin Diesel thing like nobody else, and drives fast cars and is all about family. And that's what people want from him. And he's made a lot of, so when he departs from that, it doesn't move the needle as much. So therefore other movies like that won't get made, or people won't invest in that type of movie or whatever, it is ultimately a business.
It is a business. So what about character actors? So, well, I guess, hold on, let's wrap up movie stars. We can name a couple just to help further get the point across, right? These are people where like you're going to the movie to see them. So this would be like Tom Cruise, Julia Roberts, Sandra Bullock, Brad Pitt, George Clooney. Mm-hmm. Right? Denzel, we mentioned, Leo DiCaprio. That's another one. Jennifer Lawrence. So I'm in Lake Arrowhead right now, and there's this like Arrowhead Village has this nonprofit model train enthusiasts have like a space, and you can walk in and on the weekends and you can look at their train going around. It's really clever. And I noticed, I've gone in a couple times with my toddler, and I noticed they had a little drive-in movie theater scenario scene, and they had a little iPad set up showing a movie, and it was Unstoppable, which was a Denzel Washington, Chris Pine movie about a runaway train. And I just thought that was clever, but it reminded me too about like when I think if someone were to like look back at the casting rumors for that movie, like Denzel in the 2010s was making movies with
the up and coming actor, your Ryan Gosling or your Ryan Reynolds, your Chris Pine, and everyone was trying to get those movies because that was going to help pass the torch to the next generation. So we had a bunch of Chris's in the 2010s, and then now some of them are superheroes and some of them are doing their own thing or becoming different types of superheroes with guns and whatever. Like, yeah, so we're in this weird, we haven't had, like, we'll talk about the new generation, but the 2010s is a weird time where people it seemed like there were a ton and not, a lot of them didn't pan out exactly in the traditional sense.
Yeah. I would say another thing, just to kind of try to put a button on movie stars, is that a lot of times they're kind of playing a version of themselves too.
Mm-hmm.
Right.
Yeah, the range just seems narrow.
The range just seems narrow. And that is hard to discuss on an acting podcast without it sounding like a criticism. And it's not. It's like, it's incredibly difficult to do. All of the skills necessary to play a different character are still required to play a version of yourself in a way, right? And also, again, you're seeing a very narrow slice of what they're showing the audience, and that stuff is very controlled. But I think that kind of goes back to the things you were mentioning earlier about, like, there's a consistency, there's a quality, a familiarity to it, there's a trust built in where you're like, oh, I'm going to go watch Leonardo DiCaprio suffer for 2 hours and die at the end, right? And it's like there's a catharsis in that, right? And like that's what he brings the audience, and it's like it's a great, yeah. So anyways, there's like a kind of a narrow band, right, that a lot of the movie stars operated in, and I think that was also that point was proven with your Vin Diesel anecdote. So anyways, I just wanted to bring that up because I think that's worth mentioning, because I think we're seeing that now with the next generation in some ways, and we can circle back to that. But
sorry, you're making me think of a couple of things that I think we'll probably names in the next two categories, character actors and comedians. We'll definitely name people who might say like, no, that guy is a movie star. It's just that they're a different quality or a different, like they're capable. They can like branch out a little bit more in different ways. But I was thinking of Denzel, like there's Equalizer Denzel, Man on Fire Denzel, like retribution, action, gets the job done. And then there's like Fences Denzel.
I was just going to say Fences Denzel. Yeah, right. Yeah.
And they're like, they overlap. He's got mannerisms that are in both, and they both kind of have the same, they're just different genres of the same thing, which is just really interesting. But I was going to say, to add to your button there about, just they're really good at what they do in that one. It's not a criticism. I saw with the Odyssey stuff, someone was talking about Insomnia, Chris Nolan's Al Pacino movie from 20 years ago. And apparently Chris Nolan gave a note to Al Pacino and was like, hey, on this next take, can you do it this way? And Al Pacino's like, I already did that on the previous take. And Nolan then went to watch the dailies and was like, he was right. So like that movie star is this person who has this control of their instrument, I think, that is finely tuned to what the audience wants too, somehow. Yeah, it's kind of this magical thing.
Well, I would say one thing that they all have in common is they're thinking about the audience's experience as much as the director.
Yeah.
They're very interested in telling the story for the audience and not for themselves.
That's a great point. As opposed to like delving into the character or the lived experience in the story. Okay. So character actors. So if a movie star doesn't necessarily disappear into a role, but they invite you to watch them, the character actor is that actor that does seem to disappear or shapeshift a little bit.
I think they're also believing the same thing, and they're doing what they think the audience needs, right? But they're the way they're serving the story is by trying to disappear, and not to make choices that in a different way, right? So like I think they tend to be actors that get away with more range or larger emotional stakes. So these could, I think they show up a lot in comedies or as oddballs in dramas, right? They tend to be a little bit more offbeat, or someone you would get tired of if you were to spend
The whole movie was about them.
If the whole movie was about them, right? In some cases, and
they tend to lead. Or traditionally maybe they tend to then go on to be the lead detective of a procedural or something and do this very like straight version, but it adds a little bit, like your Mandy Patinkin or something. There's a little bit of something there that makes it less cardboardy.
Yeah, or if they're going to be a lead, it's like an odd movie in a wonderful way, right? It's not like a traditional Hollywood blockbuster that a traditional star would lend themselves.
No, it's to. American Splendor or Sideways with Paul Giamatti.
Right. Exactly. Mm-hmm. Yeah. So like there's something other, like a different story that's like wonderful and wild and different in a completely couldn't be more opposite than the tentpole like $200 million movie approach, right? Where it's like, all right, let's not spend money and let's just try to tell a really good story with these people and see what we get.
Since you mentioned
more genre, it tends to be more genre. Yeah.
I've seen the trailer for this new Chuck Lorre HBO show where it's like someone's saving the world, but it's like a group of character actors like put into a sci-fi high budget world, and that's the comedy of it. And you're like, oh, it's 5 character actors saving them, because they never get to do that.
Yes.
When they're in a big Jurassic Park movie, they are the technician or somebody, right?
Yeah. Right. Yeah, they tend to be characters that disappear into the story, and you'll see them over and over and over, right? And then
they're recognizable
like,
still.
Who's that guy? Like, I know that. Yeah. Mm-hmm. Right. And then occasionally they do pop up. I think one that just had a moment last year was Walton Goggins, deservedly so. That wonderful actor, kind of did 2 things at the same time that were completely different, that I think helped, because he does such a great job in both roles, right? And one is on the Righteous Gemstones with Baby Billy, and then obviously in the
White Lotus.
The White Lotus. Thank you for saying me. Yeah,
and now he gets to do all the commercials.
And now he gets to do all the commercials for Walton Goggins goggles that don't exist. But yeah, right.
Do you have any favorite character actors?
A favorite of mine would be like John C. Reilly.
Oh yeah, for sure.
It's just like another one, but he can also carry a movie or carry a show. Like, he was great in Winning Time on HBO, and you spent a lot of time with him, and he's just entertaining, even when he's playing. And that was like a wild character, but it was still like, it was very a very dramatic role. And like, one of the things that's great about him is that like there's so much depth to the stupidity, I think, in a lot of times, and you can see a lot of vulnerability that's driving that. And I think that's kind of what makes it a little bit more broadly appealing than it's just like, he's not, it's like totally different than Jack Black's approach to humor.
Yeah.
But
just like,
which like, Jack is just a full clown, right? He's like silly, and it's awesome. And he can also play vulnerable, but it's like, it's not the same. It's not the source.
Are you saying John C. Reilly is Mr. Cellophane, the sad clown, which he, I think, was nominated for in Chicago 25 years ago?
Right. He is, but he's a great actor. There's I would heavily favor comedies. I think it would be where I would pull out most of my like character actors, because that tends to be what I fall towards. But there's a bunch of other ones.
Yeah, like, when you say that, like Richard Jenkins, who is like had this run in the last 10 years of like the leads of these indie darling movies, but he just did DTF St. Louis, and he's really funny as this sort of like weird detective, like who isn't hip to the times. and there is, yeah, I think a lot of the character actors can kind of dabble in both. I mean, Catherine Hahn, I think would be, I mean, she can do the comedy and she can do the drama. I think Margo Martindale is like amazing. A friend of mine just worked on something and got to meet her and on her new show. Like she's got some gravitas and some stuff, but you know, she pops up in these little lighter things and you're like, oh, you're really funny. Someone who plays a bad guy on Justified.
There's a bunch. I find them difficult to unless they break out into the mainstream. Like sometimes you have to really be looking closely to start to get familiar with their work.
Well, I think that would be a difference too. Like character actors, like,
well, they tend to not be
work more than movie stars,
yeah.
But they pop up in smaller places. But like they end up having like a very memorable moment in a variety of things, usually.
Right.
And there is like
they'll carry a scene, but not the whole story.
Yeah, and there's some who don't break out, and you know if you are paying attention or if you're looking for them, and you're just like that guy, and I think there's a couple documentaries about that guy, those type of actors, and which would be fun to watch one day and like talk about maybe. But yeah, they're journeymen or journey women, I think, you know, and their careers take a variety of different things, whereas that movie star is kind of like going up the hill the same direction. There's a more roundabout way.
Jennifer Coolidge is another great example.
Oh yeah, good one.
Right.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, another great example.
I mean, everyone in those Christopher Guest movies for sure.
Yes.
Is just like or White Lotus now.
The White Lotus. The White Lotus is giving a lot of them lead roles, right?
Yeah.
And that's where a lot of us are be like, oh yeah, that's right. Like her work has always been awesome, or he's always been great in things. I mean, Walton Goggins has been on my radar for a while, as I'm sure he's been for everybody, but that show has elevated a lot of people, and I think it has even pushed him into a broader like sphere than people knew.
Yeah, his career is interesting. I mean, he's definitely like he was working 20 years ago. He was working on like The Shield, and then, but he was working before that here and there, and he was hustling, and he was a journeyman actor, and then he's done
a bunch with Danny McBride, and it's all been
done a bunch of
funny.
Danny McBride. He was the lead of a short-lived sitcom. Like he did Sons of Anarchy. Like he's bounced all over the place. So yeah, I think that's a great pull.
Yeah,
and Justified. He was on Justified too.
So he's maybe a good one that's worth talking about. Where like, do you think if he earlier in his career, like, really got specific with what he wanted to do, is he someone that could have been a movie star earlier if he was like, that's my thing, I'm just doing that? You know, like if he hit bigger with early on, because I feel like oftentimes with an actor like him, where he could do a lot, and a lot of movie stars are very good actors. Like Tom Cruise is a very good actor, but he tends to do Tom Cruise things most of the time, right? But so is there a reality where like if Walton Goggins became the lead in a movie at 22, do we have a different Walton body of work today?
Well, yeah,
that's not as broad.
I mean, I guess that's a question of, that probably becomes a question of like his own and his team's integrity and what he's interested in, right? Because I think if you get that opportunity, you probably have a lot of people telling you, keep going, keep taking this, buddy, or the second detective, or keep taking the superhero. And he's not going to show up as a, in Sons of Anarchy, he's a trans prostitute with gigantic breasts. Like, that is not happening if he's a movie star.
No way.
Guarantee, vice principal still,
Right.
another Danny McBride, like that, or any of his prosthetic penises in
Yes.
as Uncle Billy, Baby Billy
Yes.
in Gemstones. None of that's happening, and that's kind of the stuff I love the most about him. Is it
Yeah.
like he just goes for it?
Just wild.
I think it'd be like he'd be serious and grizzled, and he'd be, kind of what he was doing in White Lotus, where it's like very somber and serious and stoic. Like that would probably have been the thing. And if a vehicle lined up with that and gave him stardom at 20, 30 years ago, that'd be a different ride for sure. Maybe more of a young, like Clint Eastwood or something.
Yeah. Or would he have become what this next category is, which is a chameleon?
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah,
which
sure.
are actors that are leading actors. They are movie stars, but they're known for being for disappearing into roles.
Mm-hmm.
Right? So like for me, the number one is Christian Bale, right?
Yeah.
Dude's incredible in everything, and it's always different. And it's like, doesn't matter if it's dialect, physicality, makeup, whatever. He's just always disappears into that role in a lot of ways. And I feel like he's been able to keep the kind of mystique of who is Christian Bale away from like press. Whereas a lot of movie stars are, when you see the movie and you see the actor, you're like, that makes a lot of sense. But with him, you're like, oh, it's less clear. He's more opaque, right? In terms of like what his personality is. Gary Oldman is another one that's great, right? And another
on Slow Horses right now, just having a ball, being so funny.
Just like, but another just like absolute powerhouse actor where whatever you see him in, you think that's what he does. Right. It's like, I remember my first exposure to him that I like remember that had a big impact on me was The Fifth Element. And it was like, I remember seeing him in that and then seeing him as like Commissioner Gordon and being like, that's the same guy. Like, that's crazy.
Yeah.
And it's just like the range and like his commitment to the roles is such that it's like it doesn't feel like it's a character. He's just, that's just how that guy's always been.
Yeah, for sure. I'll shout out like Tilda Swinton and Cate Blanchett,
Cate Blanchett,
who is a movie star in her own right or at certain times in her career, and yet is also just really good at transforming, just being a totally like character to character.
I would say the same for Lupita Nyong'o.
Yeah.
She's another one that like she should be a movie star, and she's also like an incredible actor.
Yeah. Yeah. One of my favorites is Philip Seymour Hoffman. And it's the Chameleons are hard because I think some, like the list we're saying, they get very famous, like especially if you're a cinephile or just love Hollywood. But I think of like him in Boogie Nights. Think of him in Boogie Nights. John C. Reilly too. There are a lot of character actors there.
Yeah, and
Leo, I think, gets to become a chameleon in PTA movies as well. But him and Philip Seymour Hoffman in Boogie Nights, Philip Seymour Hoffman in Along Comes Polly, and then Philip Seymour Hoffman in like Mission Impossible or The Master or whatever. You're like, it's so broad range, and he's so funny in Boogie Nights and Along Comes Polly. There's him shooting basketballs. I can't. If I see it on my feed, I have to watch it. And then he's just so dialed in and an actor in all these other. Obviously, In Cold Blood was a huge transformation, I think. But
I think two other major names that need to be mentioned are Daniel Day-Lewis and Meryl Streep, because they're also just they're maybe the peak of these hybrid chameleon movie stars. Where like they will get a movie greenlit and financed just by their name, but they're also, you have no idea. And so much of the anticipation as a person that's in the industry is the like, what are they going to do? Like, what accent is it? What,
Hmm.
how did they transform themselves? Because they seem to go so above and beyond in so many ways that, and if you listen to them talk, could not be more different acting techniques,
Right.
right, to get to that result, which I just find to be so fascinating. Um, but they're ones that also disappear into roles that are worth mentioning.
And I think like a lot like that list, I mean, especially those last two, obviously they attract directors
Yes.
who, um, and big name directors who I have to think that's more than just a marriage of like, this is going to sell territories in Germany
Right.
pre-sale and
Yes.
like, and put butts in seats. But it is, um,
Well, I
uh,
think that's important, an important distinction to make that I think can sometimes get lost in the discussion about like getting things financed, because like that is an important part of the business. At the end of the day, you need money. The only thing you need to make a movie is money, but these people do want to make movies together. They want to tell good stories. So
yeah,
they are at the peak of their craft, and unfortunately there's a business component that they have to factor in, but a lot of them do just want to make good material.
yeah, yeah. And I mean, you see it, you see, like, I'm just thinking of Daniel Day-Lewis and Steven Spielberg, coming
Yeah,
together for Lincoln. And it is just sort of like what could happen if we collaborate. But I'm also, that makes me think of like, and this will maybe segue us into our next section about where have all the movie stars gone. But I'm thinking of like the '70s and like De Niro and Scorsese
yeah,
and like De Niro went his older stuff, like his early work. He's a chameleon there, like
yeah,
Cape Fear and Raging Bull. Like these are different, even Midnight Run. Like these are different versions until he finds like this De Niro persona that
yes,
of like Meet the Fockers and stuff that
yeah, no, yeah,
um, is becomes who he is now. But he can still turn it on. But like those Scorsese De Niro ones, I mean, those were fun. Even though he's playing different shades of the same guy, there's a chameleon aspect there.
for sure. So why don't we see movie stars now? Because there is like that does seem to be a thing, and there's been a dip over the last several years, and maybe we're kind of seeing a little bit of a resurgence, but it's not like it
I think we're seeing
was.
a little bit. No, but I think it's that. Well, I think it ultimately comes down. Well, there's a couple things at play. So one is the type of movies that have been getting made for the last 20 years. They've definitely gone further and further into IP and comic books, right?
Yeah,
And I don't think a lot of those movies attract um, attract like some early on. It got some movie stars. They made some movie stars, like they resurged. Robert Downey Jr.'s resurgence at becoming a movie star with Iron Man. But now they put in, a bunch of people who are kind of hot from television or have a movie and they're seeing if they can make a movie star, but like no one's showing up because we're all fatigued from 20 years of Marvel and Star Wars and Jurassic Park. I mean, like we've seen the same movie
computer
over and over
generated
again.
third acts, right?
Yeah. Yeah. So there's that. A lot of the talent because there's less movies getting made. So there's less genres of movies getting made, which I think that's where a movie star gets discovered, right? Is doing, think of like Ed Norton, like, and some of his early works. Like those weren't franchise movies. Those Primal Fear and those were just adult films, like mid-budget films that people wanted to see.
Yeah,
And you're like, oh, this guy's interesting. What happens if we put him in a movie with a big studio? And
right.
I don't know. What do you think?
I mean, I think you're onto something there. I think there was a period of time where established materials and intellectual property was putting butts in seats, and it was less about the actors,
Hmm.
right? It wasn't so, I mean, especially when you see something like, Spider-Man has been at the top of the box office for the last 20 years. Like every one of those movies has been a huge hit, and there's been three different actors to do it. And it's like, so
Four now,
obvious.
right? Is
Four.
it three?
Is it four or three? Three
Tobey
actors.
Maguire,
Yeah. And then Andrew
Andrew
Garfield
Garfield,
and Tom
and
Holland.
Tom Holland. There
Yeah.
wasn't. Oh, okay. Or Andrew
Well, and then there's
Garfield.
Miles Morales, which is like the digital one.
Yeah,
And
right,
then
right.
now
Those,
Nick
yeah,
Cage, right? But
yeah,
again,
yeah.
I think that also just stands to
Tells.
show, or same with Batman, right? Like
Hmm.
Batman's been rebooted a million times to great success.
We've had
And
so many Batmans in the last 10 years alone.
yes, right.
Mhm.
Yeah, so like that same with Superman has been less successful on screen, but the point I think kind of still stands where like there was these like IP famous characters that actors would step into, um, almost like they're almost like Shakespeare roles,
Right.
right? Where it's like the role itself, the character
It's Hamlet.
itself is so
Mhm.
famous that the actor can be interchangeable. And that was the story that they were telling for a while, right? And like the movies that were getting made. And I think they did kind of stumble on a formula that has maybe become apparent because of the volume of movies that were put out. And then I think also just like from a storytelling perspective, they kind of hit their climax. They hit a finale with Avengers Endgame, right?
Yeah.
And like it hit this peak and it was like, whoa, that was awesome. And it way paid off. And now why am I still watching? It's like, and I think they maybe needed to cool it for a few years before coming back rather than just like pushing forward. But I think with that finale, I think audiences are also now looking at something different. And if we look at the box office this year's any indication, people are going to the movies that are shot with minimal CG
Hmm.
or where it's used really intentionally rather than green volume, green screen extravaganzas, right? Where like every inch of that frame is created in post production. It's like that is becoming less appealing. That polish or like that look is just not working on audiences the way that it was.
And I think in addition to visually not being as appealing, some of these movies that are overperforming more than anyone expected, like Project Hail Mary, it has Ryan Gosling in it, and it has um, a very successful team behind it, but it was a bit of came out of nowhere and made so much money. And now I think it cements Gosling in that movie star category where it's like, oh, he could put butts in seats. He's been attached to IP in the past. He's been attached to things, and you didn't get the impression people necessarily came to the movie for him. But now I think you can make that argument that the next one they will potentially. But Backrooms and Obsession, all three of those films are original stories. And even if they're based on another source, that's still like original to the mainstream, I would say.
I would say even the Odyssey, which is peak IP, it's a story that's been around for 3,000 years, but it's made in a very old school, hands-on, like exciting way,
practical effects and
right, as much as possible, and like I mean, Christopher Nolan does
real
use CG,
locations,
but right, but it's like intentionally used, and I think we're starting to see that now as movie going is becoming more of an experience, and like Gen Z, to their credit, is going more often, right? So like the kids are going to save us.
And I think they're not picking movie star vehicles necessarily. They're picking director led vehicles. They're going to Backrooms and Barbie and Oppenheimer and Odyssey, these big things, or Sinners.
So, but I think even beyond the box office, another thing that has led to the change in movie stardom is social media. I think is a big part of it. Yeah, because now there's people have more control over the stories they're telling online than ever before, but sometimes that there's so much competition now that it dilutes that prestige, and I think it can also get rid of that like mystique that I think a lot of movie stars have. Because if you think about the list that we went through earlier, we know very little about them, at least from like through the press, right? And like there is an air of like mystery, yeah, exactly, which I think lends itself well.
And now, and like Leonardo DiCaprio, who was like, I think it was Lou Wasserman was like, don't let that kid go anywhere. Like audiences should only see him in movies, and that worked out. And he kind of did that only up until recently, where he like did a TikTok or whatever for the opening of his movie.
Changed, right?
But then you look at Timothée Chalamet, who's like everywhere at the Knicks game, doing like he's in the marketing for Marty Supreme, and leading the charge and going on SNL and doing all like and being all over all of the social medias. And you're like, okay, those are the two ends of the spectrum. The next generation might do something a little different and want more privacy or want more variety, perhaps in their experiences.
Yeah. And there is a new generation that is coming through, and they are all younger for the most part. Right?
Yeah.
There's I feel like there's not right now, anyways, there's not like a Bryan Cranston that's like in their 50s that's like getting famous now, other than Pedro Pascal. Yeah, he's like,
but he's been working for so long too. He's kind of got that Walter Goggins thing where he just all of a sudden like got in every huge.
Well, it's like, and
they
like,
put him in star vehicles and they put him in ensembles.
Yeah,
whatever.
Yeah. It's Oscar Isaac is kind of similar, right? Where it's been around forever, and like Hollywood has just figured out what to do with them. And it's like they're good and everything. They're great actors.
I mean, we said Timothée. We Odyssey Zendaya, right?
Yeah.
She's probably the biggest movie star that is of the generation, I guess, because she's in the Spider-Man movies. She's in designer commercials, and I don't know what her social media is, but I'm sure it's enormous. And she is a one-name person.
Yes.
Right. So, but
there's a natural mystique.
She's also a great act. Like Challengers is incredible, and and but she's doing a little bit of everything, which is kind of interesting. She's doing these big movies, but also did some television. I like Florence Pugh as like. Yep. I think she's maybe soured on the movie star fame, and just picking projects. I'm getting the impression, but she makes interesting choices, and I could see her having the skill set to be a breakout star.
Yeah. I think right now interesting careers are Sydney Sweeney and Glen Powell. Mm-hmm. So like they did a movie together, but they have both been the headliners on a lot of movies the last couple of years that none of them have done well.
They didn't work, right?
Yeah.
Or they didn't make money.
They didn't make money. It's not a quality of the. There's not a knock on the quality of the movie, because like the movies could be good, but if they just don't resonate don't find an audience for whatever. If we could tell you why, then we wouldn't be on this podcast, because we'd be out on a yacht somewhere. It's like good movies that don't land with good directors for whatever reason, but they've been on like a string of movies that kind of haven't gone anywhere, and it's not, and they kind of aren't the type of performers that are going to get a lot of awards prestige either.
Right. Right. No, you like Glen Powell. I think the idea was like, probably for decades, people were like, he can be the next Tom Cruise, and you see it. He's in Top Gun Maverick, and he's got this version of Tom Cruise that's there, and then some of the movies don't work out, and probably you see him pivot to making his own television show, which is actually pretty funny. The football show, Chad Powers, and going back to work with Richard Linklater on a few upcoming movies, and you're like, okay, I bet he's trying to find some creative fulfillment and be more involved in the stuff he is, and not necessarily waiting around to be deemed the next movie star. Because frankly, I don't know if it's going to happen again.
Right?
Because it's up to the audiences.
It is
mostly. It's like, are you going to repeatedly go see that person and pay good money to see them opening weekend? I kind of think like the whole movie star, and getting a little off topic, but like, it's sort of like why no one goes to the movies and why no one, like, there's no monoculture anymore. We're all watching two screens at once, or
there's just so much content, which again goes back to like the reason there aren't as many movie stars is that it's so diluted. It's hard for anyone to catch wind and sustain it, because it's really hard to get any movie made. Never mind to get several made that do really well, that keep your name in like the press in a good way for a long period of time. Yeah.
And then because of social media, any star has to then think about their own, what is the version of themselves that they're selling in real life or whatever, if they're going to participate in that. Are they creating their own persona that then you would go see in movies, which you didn't, it'd be like if Julia Roberts, in between all of her Erin Brockovich and Pretty Woman, was like, we also knew what she was making for dinner all the time or whatever. Like, that just wasn't how it worked back then. And so you just kept going because it was going to be a couple years before you saw another Julia Roberts movie.
Right.
And now it's like, well, you can see Timothée Chalamet every day on your phone. I don't know.
Right. Or the sideline of a Knicks game.
Yeah. Right. Like, and I think some people, the younger audiences, might be more conditioned differently than we are. Yeah. So, I don't know. It'll be interesting. I mean, we were talking about this off the pod too, of just, movie studios used to be the biggest buyers, and now that's getting diluted too. There's a whole independent wave of stuff being made. And so it is going to be interesting to see how anyone navigates that in the next 10, 20 years.
Yeah. And there's a lot of changes to the industry that are upcoming, but it does make it, I think it makes it more difficult to reach the peaks that some of the movie stars have had, in the past. I think but that doesn't mean that the career is not sustainable. And I think to me, it puts more pressure on becoming a producer as fast as possible, because that's the only way you can get any control in your career. And I think you see that with a lot of the names, like a lot of the young up and comers, right? Where it's like Glen Powell, Zendaya, Timothée Chalamet, they're all producing their own stuff, right? All of these actors now are a producer on their piece. So that's because they're bringing in financing, but also like they are involved in the storytelling choices, the director, who that's going to be, where they're going to shoot, how some of the financials work. Like, they're going to have a say in a lot of that, and they are responsible for getting that movie across the finish line. But I think that's necessary now more than ever, and that wasn't something that was really done before, but is now common.
Yeah, it used to be a bigger machine, and now I think it's a lot of people with their own smaller machine, right? Like a movie star was a cog in the wheel of the studio system, and now it's like, no, you get to be your own product. I mean, you look at Ryan Reynolds, right? I mean, there's no reason for him to be an actor anymore. Like, if you think about it, like he's making how much money doing all these other things, running his own production company, doing documentaries, by owning a football team, and then he's like, oh, you know what? I'll play Deadpool. Actually, I'll write and play Deadpool as well, and make it it's the Ryan Reynolds machine.
Yes. Well, yeah, and I think that gets us to what does this mean for actors today?
Mostly this was fun for me to just talk about and us to like talk about favorite thing. But let's see if we can find something practical to take away from it.
Well, but I think you can look at that stuff for trends, right? Everything that's happening at the top is going to be happening all the way down the call sheet, right? So, you know, producing your own material is now more important than ever before. Finding a group that you want to work with and jive with, because you're going to come up together as a cohort, right, into the industry. So you want to find those people and make things with them. So that's, I think, like the biggest takeaway to me is like, if you look at like, all right, A-list actors are now having to be producers, we should probably start thinking about how do we make sure that we're finding our own work and generating our own work and telling stories that are interesting to us and finding ways to get creative and to be out there. So that way, when there is an opportunity to go get paid, you're like ready and excited. And I can also tell you that when you're used to being a producer and a director and an actor, to just act on a show is like such a treat when you get hired and you're like, the only thing I can do is act. This is amazing. And the hard part that I have then is like, I'll walk into something and I'll be like, oh, that's going to be a problem. And it's like, but it's not my job to say anything.
Right.
You know, just be quiet. But yeah, not all actors need to be movie stars. We're not going to be movie stars in all likelihood, right? That's fine. And that is like, most of us, I don't think, are trying to do that anyways. And I think if you're trying to be famous, there's easier, faster ways to do that. You can make stupid stuff on TikTok or get into reality TV, go get on Love Island. If you want to be famous, like that's a much faster, shorter path.
I think, but you know, going back to what we were talking about with movie stars having this pull of the audience, like if you're making your own work, you're going to find your own audience.
Yep.
And you're going to, or hopefully find an audience and eventually, and if you're making it as specific to what your values are and your artistry and like taste is, and able to do it consistently to keep output and build an audience. In theory, someone might be like, hey, great, Sean Patrick, like bring your audience over to this project, or you just keep growing that audience and you be that if the whole world is fragmented in what they're watching anyways, and you have 100 people or 1,000 people who want to watch you do that one thing that you do really well, there's probably a way to make that, you know, lucrative. And it's certainly going to be creatively filling.
For sure.
I would also say like my other takeaway is kind of like letting go a little bit. Like I think when I started, there was that pipeline or there was a ladder. And it's like, oh, okay, maybe if I try to do this and then from there I could try to do that. And you could try to map your career. And I don't think that's possible anymore. So like,
no, but
you can't pick
an
actor that's out there right now and try to do what they're doing. You know what I mean?
No. Well, I don't think you've ever, yes, you can't do what someone else is doing, right? You have to find your own way through.
Career choices. I'm going to do a CW show, and that's going to get me into a movie, right?
Yeah, maybe. I think what you could do, a lot of it depends on the representation you have, right? And I think this is how you try to read your career as you move through it, is like as you get roles, each role is going to open a set of doors for you or potentially unlock some doors for you. And if you want to open it and go through it, that's up to you. And like, that could be like, you know, booking a big role might get you better representation, that gets you a network and connections to getting an indie film that might, you know, get into Sundance or something, you know? So like there's a behind the scenes game that you can play. And then also like, you know, if you then like to continue this hypothetical, right? Like, all right, so you've done that. You've booked a recurring role that, you know, got you a manager at Gersh or something, and then that connected you with Curry Barker, and now you're going to be in his next movie, right? That's, you know, getting shot. It's like, all right, well, now I might want a PR person that can help me get out in front and like tell a bigger story and elevate my audience and expose me to more people, right? Like that's how I think the industry starts to become. But then it's so business heavy that I think it's really hard to then go back and do something like what we were talking about with Walton Goggins, which is like just do the shit you're interested in and like let that guide you rather than just chasing fame or chasing an outcome. Because you don't, it's like it's not guaranteed and it might not be fulfilling. So I guess it's like what is part of it is fun for you, and like let that guide you. Like don't lose joy in the process. Hopefully, that's something that we get to talk about at some point in our careers, where we're like, hey, here's how I've thought about making these decisions. When I said, right, Mr. Spielberg, I'm sorry, I can't take your role.
Yeah, I mean, I think it does. You have to be, when I say, I guess, let go a little bit, it is like let go of thinking you have certain controls, right?
Yeah.
And because there's a time and place, all of that stuff, like a publicist or whatever, that when the time comes where you might need that, that'll probably fall into place pretty easily, and or you'll talk to people in your team or whatever. But
it's the kind of industry where if you need it, they reach out to you.
Yeah.
Right. So you don't really have to think about it. You can just worry about doing your job.
Right. So if you're just going after, and if you're just reminding yourself, what is it that I wanted from this? And I think, it's like it used to be, and if I've said this before, forgive me, but a casting director said this once, and it was like, you do movies to get famous, TV to make money, and theater to get good. And if you're already good and you're trying to make money, it doesn't, like, TV's still the way, I guess, because that's where most of the work's gone. I think that's one thing we might have missed in the whole conversation. It's like the boom of television. Sure. Movie stars going to television, but TV's still the way, but movies aren't going to get you famous anymore necessarily. I think like Instagram will get you famous. TikTok will get you famous.
Yes. TV could get you famous.
Or TV could get you famous. Yeah.
Right. But movies are less so now. I think like of that list that we just mentioned, like of the younger folks, it's like Timothée Chalamet and Zendaya are probably the only two that are just like only movies. Like
but she started off on that.
Well, I guess Euphoria
kind
of threw her.
Yeah, Euphoria.
Kind of threw her.
And then her career took off.
So it's just Timmy, I think.
Yeah. So but now everyone, even of the, like, all of the classic actors, many of them have done television now, because
they've gone back to do it. That's like the star maker right now. That's where the best stories are being told right now.
And that's where the writers have gone, because they're not making the same amount of movies and the same diversity of movies. Yeah.
Well, it's also where they get more control. The writers get more control on TV.
Sure. Yeah.
Character actors, like, I think is interesting. There's an appeal. Part of me wants to be a character actor. Like,
you don't have any control.
If I could choose anything, though,
Oh, okay.
I would want to be a character actor.
Sure.
Because I find that work to be fun. And
you have the most variety.
You get the most variety,
the most experience, the most different. You'd be meeting different types of filmmakers. Like,
yeah, for sure. You get to work on a variety of things. You get to work more often. Like, might not be absolute paychecks, but you could totally buy a house with that, right? Which is enough, So that would be fun. I mean, being a movie star and booking something like James Bond would also be like fucking rad.
Sure.
That's like, I don't know. It just seems so unobtainable.
Yeah. I mean, I remember when Daniel Craig booked Bond, and I was like, the guy from Layer Cake, which was very indie movie that I loved. Yeah. And I'm like, how cool. And you're like, he was great. And you're just like, I don't think that happens anymore.
No, not really.
I don't think that really, I mean, but you know what? You never know. And the pendulum swings, and like, who knows?
Well,
but,
it's
more like, can you hang on long enough to get a Christoph Waltz moment or something,
Well, I think another thing that, if we go back to our list of A-list actors, most of them were child actors.
there's probably that. Yeah.
The majority of them, right? Like started really young and kind of
Or just started right away. And they,
yeah.
and also it was a time, the different decades have their different things of like, the 90s, like they were just churning out small movies.
Yeah.
And some were hitting. So it's like, you can't control so much of that. So I kind of like say yes, try everything, say no when you really mean it, and like figure out what makes your heart sing and go for it.
Right.
And probably do it. And I'm telling this to us and myself more, like start making more of your own stuff,
Yeah. Why
betting
don't
on
you
yourself.
figure out what you like and what you enjoy?
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Man, I think we covered it.
I think so. I think we got it. We got there.
All right, my ad lib for the week, the thing that's bringing me joy. This just hit my feed. The Savannah Bananas.
I've seen this.
Have you heard of them?
No.
Oh, it's like a semi-pro baseball team. And they dress in all yellow, the Savannah Bananas, but it's basically, it's kind of like the Harlem Globetrotters and now there's multiple teams, but they've been like slowly building over the last 2 years. I think, and I've just seen them on social media, just doing cause they do bits all the time, and they do like the rules change, and they do it looks like a blast to go and to bring like the family.
Yeah.
But they just did, a game at Wrigley Field.
Oh.
And they brought out old Cubs players like from the 2016 World Series team to play in the game. And so and then and even older, Kerry Wood threw a behind the back pitch that was a strike. And they created a video that with the Savannah Bananas and the kid who played Rookie of the Year, speaking of child actors.
Yeah.
And like they recreated the scene from Rookie of the Year where he discovers he has this killer arm and throws it to bleachers. And they recreated it, the whole thing. And then they have like, they bring out other players to hit and whatever. And I'm just like, this looks like so much fun. Also, what's the next big idea? That's the version of Savannah Bananas where we could have some ridiculous, like dog racing team or something, and then make these videos that are just really for the dorks who are showing up to this. and just because it's like so, like the things that I've seen, it's like hilarious and entertaining, and it's pure just spectacle. And now these teams are cropping up all over these where they do things. It's like if a fan catches the ball, like it's out, it's still an out, like things like that. So I might be doing a deep dive into the Savannah Bananas and the other teams, because it just looks like theater. It looks like circus. It looks super fun. And I'm like, oh, cool. I had no idea they had this much production value into it. And I think you can watch them on like ESPN Ocho or whatever, but
oh, that's funny.
Yeah.
Oh, that's super fun. Mine, my ad lib this week is going to be a throwback movie, Seven, David Fincher movie. With Brad Pitt and Morgan Freeman, and outstanding movie. I had never seen it.
Really?
And Jess had never seen it, so we put it on the other night and we're like, let's watch this thing. And like I had recommended it to him, like this movie comes up a lot, we should watch it, right? And what a great film, and what a dark ending.
Yeah,
super dark ending. But I do love how it's just raining for like 90% of that movie, and it makes it seem like it was such a nightmare shoot to be on. And like the whole time I'm like, this is awful. This poor sound mixer is like, like gotta be sweating, but great film. And it's something that does hold up. So if you've not seen it, I encourage you to go check it out. It's on Peacock right now.
Oh, did you know any of the like behind the scenes about it, or like did you know Kevin Spacey was in it?
Only like because of the IMDb page.
Because I remember that was a secret at the time when that came out. Like it was not. That was the big reveal. Like the twist. And then twist again. He is really a bad guy.
That's right. Yes. Some actors just play themselves. Yeah.
What's in the box?
Yeah. What's in the box?
That's we have a child. My son has this toy and it says the box on it, and it's like, or it has question marks because you put little toys that you pull out. I'm always thinking, what's in the box?
Yeah. That's one of those lines that does, like, it comes up all the time.
Yeah, it's been memeified. Yeah, really tense movie. Now, my last question then, have you guys watched Mindhunter?
Yes.
Oh, okay, great.
Yeah. Mindhunter's great.
I mean, I like Fincher. Give me Fincher with serial killer, like, any day.
Oh, yeah.
Like, I just want more.
It's so interesting.
Yeah.
All right. And if you guys want more, you can send us a question or a comment, ask@supportingactors.com. Like us, subscribe wherever you're listening. Thank you for tuning in to another one. I'm Sean Dubé.
And I'm Patrick Quinlan.
Tune in next week when we find out what is in the box.